Greetings, everyone. You have joined us on OptimizeHer² on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us this October 7th, 2025. This is actually our fourth episode. We started this on August 19th, and already we have, about 3,500 views. Thank you all so much. We know that you have so many other things you could be doing right now, so many other podcast choices, but I know you're here because you want to get educated, elevated, and empowerment from the ladies here at OH², and maybe a little bit of entertainment from time to time. OH² podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views are expressed by those of our co-creators and Tricia, our special guest tonight, and they are not necessarily professional advice. We don't want to misconstrue that here. Our opinions and facts are based on personal and professional experiences that we have, however. So we do have a lot of background. We don't want to lead you that we don't know what we're talking about, of course. We make no representations or warranties regarding the accuracy, completeness, or applicability of the content. Again, we strive to give you information that we know to be good, concise, and informational. We encourage comments too. So if you could do that, just comment about what you see here on OH². One of our viewers, Tara Findelman, had commented about the health and well-being episode that was done by Joni Rampola. We really appreciate that. We really, really do, and encourage that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my co-creator here with me, Barbara E. Ringrose with Nichols. Take it away, Quincy.
I am so excited for episode 4. I feel like we are really finding our groove and our rhythm in the community that we are looking to build here on YouTube. As you all know, I am the owner and founder of experience-coaching.com and founder of the Spark Framework, where I help you bring tough conversations to moments of opportunity to catalyze your growth. So I'm so happy to be here today with Barb, and we have a special guest that has come from behind the scenes to in front of the camera. We have our very own Tricia Soderstrom, who's going to be helping us with thinking about how managing kids, clients, and chronic illness can be a work of balance. So when you think about it, life doesn't slow down when you're managing chronic illness, raising kids, or running a business. But how do you manage it all without sacrificing your health? In today's episode on OptimizeHer², Barbara and I talk with Tricia to explore the realities of balancing health, motherhood, entrepreneurship, and share practical strategies, honest experiences, and the encouragement for women who often feel like they have to do it all on their own. So with that, Tricia, welcome to front of the camera.
Thank you. It's a little nerve-wracking to be on this side of the camera. I prefer to be in the background editing and doing all the things I do. But thanks. I have really enjoyed this podcast. You two are just a natural, so hopefully I can join in on that a little bit.
Thank you so much.
You got it, Tricia. You're amazing.
Oh, I haven't.
Yeah. And you are, I just want you to know, we're here on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So be sure to put that in your calendars because we don't want you to miss anything.
Save us.
That's right.
All right, we're getting ready for a Power Pack 30 to 45-minute dialogue with these two inspiring female entrepreneurs and also a third guest entrepreneur who have mastered the art of balancing their business empire with their personal well-being. Or so that's the way we tell the tale.
Yeah, I think sometimes we project the look of we have it all together, but inside we are all battling many different things. I'm excited to have this conversation with Tricia and just really highlight some of the ways that we could all better support each other.
Most definitely. And that's what I did when I started Wow Women, Optimizing Women. You can see me at wowwomenus.com, and you can see how over 12, 13 years, what that does and how you build a membership and how you build a following and the importance of women coming together to share their experience and their knowledge. And that's what you're getting here tonight with Tricia.
I'm just really happy to be here and to be able to share my experience because I think more women than we realize are dealing with some type of chronic condition, whether they're an entrepreneur working in a company, stay-at-home mom. I was a homeschool mom. We have to learn how to balance our day-to-day activities and figure out how to manage a chronic illness. Maybe it's a illness that is kind of a steady illness where we constantly have symptoms that we have to manage, or it could be something that comes and goes, and we have to know how to manage our time. And also, like if we're parents, managing our children's schedules and what they're doing. So it was really difficult for me, but I found my groove and learned some things that I can help other people with. And then there are things that I did terribly, and I can share that too, and maybe prevent other people from going down that road too.
And
Well,
that's why we give the disclaimer at the beginning, right? Because we do things the right way sometimes, and oftentimes we learn from where we may have had some opportunities. And Tricia, I also want to just a quick shout out and a thank you for the sharing that you're going to do, because it's vulnerable, and I appreciate your willingness to share the topic with everyone.
oh,
Sure.
most definitely. Thank you,
Mhm.
Tricia.
Sure. Yeah, it is very vulnerable. And it is, when I started my business, this is not something that I would share with clients. I wouldn't say, hey, I'm dealing with a chronic illness, but please hire me.
Right.
And, so that's something that I, in the background, am managing, understanding that I can't put, 110% in like I want to. My brain tells me, do all these things and do what everyone else is doing, and maybe compare what I'm doing with someone in my field. But I have to keep reminding myself that I need to do what is best for me, not what other people are doing.
And I think that's important for us all to recognize. We need to stop comparing ourselves to other people. We see people on the TV, we see them somewhere else, but a lot of this stuff is scripted. And that's one of the things we really don't do here at OH2, even though I keep something here for us to stay on task because we want to give you as much information as possible. You can't be the perfect mom. You can't be the perfect employee, the perfect entrepreneur. We want to, like you said, Trisha, our brain is saying to us, "Yeah, go, go, go," and our body's saying, "Not so fast."
Right. That was probably one of the most difficult things for me because I'm so type A. And before there was ever Pinterest, I was like the Pinterest mom. I was doing everything. I was an overachiever in so many ways. Even now, like even when I was homeschooling, when I had Lyme disease, I was still probably doing way more than I ever should have. And that is one of the areas that I think I could have done better, was backing off quite a bit and resting more and taking better care of myself. And I think that that's something that is very important to remember, that there's a time and a season, right? And there's no guarantee that if you have a chronic illness, you're going to get better, but you can't get better unless you're taking care of yourself.
That's a good point.
That's a really good point. And I also want to mention that you serve as an educator for Lyme disease. So,
Mhm.
for the people who may be listening who aren't familiar with it, could you give them a little bit of an idea of what that means?
Sure. So Lyme disease is probably one of the most prevalent illnesses, especially in America, but all over the world. And there's so many misconceptions about it. When I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, that was back in 2009, and there just wasn't very much information out there about that. Doctors were getting reprimanded and losing their license for treating chronic Lyme disease, and if it didn't fit what was told to the doctors, what they were allowed to do, they could get in a lot of trouble. So it was difficult to get a diagnosis for a chronic illness because they really only recognized acute Lyme disease, which is like an early infection. And if you come into the doctor and you're presenting with all these crazy symptoms, they don't know what to do with you, and you don't fit into their little box. So most of us would spend 2 to 5 years going to different specialists looking for some type of a diagnosis. It took me 2 years to get diagnosed, and the illness doesn't present like just a classic Lyme, which is joint pain, right? There's so many different symptoms that can happen, and it affects every single part of your body and every system in your body. It can present as heart issues or neurological issues or just so many different things, and it's often misdiagnosed as many other diseases and illnesses. So I have just made it my mission to help educate people about what Lyme disease is, how to get a diagnosis, what kind of doctor you should go visit, because if you go to certain doctors, you will most certainly not be diagnosed correctly. And the other thing too is a lot of time, most of the time, to get treated with a chronic infection, you have to go to a doctor that doesn't take insurance. They
Yeah.
just cannot be confined to the parameters of what insurance will allow. So it's really important to find, a doctor who's more holistic, who understands the whole body system and can treat effectively. And that was one of the things that my family did that was not, helpful, was that we stayed within the insurance system for too long, and it took a lot longer to get better than it could have.
I've seen some devastating things in my family too. Actually, one of our local delegates, I met her at a fundraiser for our clerk of the circuit court last Wednesday evening, and she was diagnosed with Lyme's disease, and it was just horrible.
Mhm.
It takes a lot away from you. You mentioned this, strokes and heart ailments and so forth that come along with that, but you also had some interesting statistics, I think, too, about Lyme's disease, and also how there's almost like other diseases that come along the way, and migraines, for instance, something that you and I share.
Yeah, so with Lyme disease, because it impacts every system in your body, it can trigger other illnesses, other diseases, and unfortunately, even cancer. So it can trigger a cancer response in your body. And so that's why I'm saying it's so important to see a doctor who understands how Lyme disease can impact your system, your whole body. And it's never just Lyme. So there's all these other co-infections that can come along with it. And then most people are exposed to mold somewhere in their environment, either their home or work or shopping or something like that. So mold can make it worse. Heavy metals can make it worse. There are
Hmm.
just so many layers to having an illness with chronic Lyme disease. And unless you're addressing all of those layers, it's really difficult. I mean, it's difficult anyway to get better, but you do have to approach it from a whole body approach in order
Wow.
to get better.
Thank you for sharing that because I had only had limited knowledge of Lyme's disease and selfishly enough, it was from exposure to a reality show years ago. One of the housewives, I think, was having a challenge with Lyme's disease, and that's where I had my first sort of introduction to it. I could only imagine how it is having to manage all of that and wanting to take care of your body and those needs, and also running a business and also caring for your family. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you, I don't even want to use the word balance, but maybe just manage through all of that?
Right. There's no way to balance it. My situation I thought was very unique, but as I started blogging and sharing about it on social media, I found out that my situation is very common, and that is whole families have Lyme disease. And so when I was diagnosed, I started realizing, and I was learning about it, started realizing my daughters had symptoms that I was having. And it took me quite a while to get them diagnosed, even though I was finally able to get a diagnosis. And so at that point, I was not running my own business. I was a homeschool mom. So I'm trying to homeschool. I did successfully homeschool all of my children, but I was homeschooling. I was, trying to take care of myself and also caregiving for my children who were very, very sick. And thankfully, we had different times when we couldn't get out of bed. So, like, my daughters were preteens and they were able to help out wherever they could. But for the most part, it was all on me and it was very difficult. So, I had to do things like order my groceries before it was ever popular because that was way before 2020. And I had to find rides for my healthy kids when they wanted to go play sports, or there's just different balls that I had to manage in order to make sure that my kids were getting what they could as far as a healthy childhood, even though they weren't healthy. I was trying to make sure that their friends would come over to see them so that they weren't isolated. And there were a lot of different balls that I was juggling and trying to make sure that we were all getting what we needed, and most of the time I didn't because I was the caregiver. And so that was probably the hardest part. And as they got older and I regained quite a bit of my health, I did start working in the evenings just to help pay for these incredible medical bills. And so that was another place where I had to shift gears and I had to decide, okay, well, how am I going to schedule my day? I had to be extremely scheduled and I had to make sure that all the balls were, rolling in the right direction and that everyone knew what they had to do. And if somebody needed extra help, that a sibling could come along, or maybe I could ask a friend to come over. So there were just a lot of challenges during that time. And the more I regained my health and my kids were getting better and they were going off and working and things like that, I decided I was going to start this crazy blog. So I started this blog, I built my website, I started doing a lot of social media, and I really fell in love with doing WordPress and, you know, building websites and things like that. So I started helping other bloggers, and that's kind of the start of my virtual assistant business. And then it kind of morphed into what I'm doing now. That was back around 2015. I was so much better, but I still really struggled with my health, and I still had to really balance, manage my day to day. I still had kids in school, so
Mm,
I just had to make choices that would help take some load off of me, but also meet the needs of my family.
wow.
So, present day, of course, you've managed to get through this. You still have your days, and I respect that. And I think it's important to be able to tell certain people that, but you wouldn't want to, like you mentioned, maybe tell the whole world. Because
Until now.
sometimes if people can have a different viewpoint or view of who you are, what you do, and the quality of work perhaps that you may be able to do for them. And I can only speak for myself and the experience we've had. You do amazing work. So I
Absolutely.
love the way that you've managed. You talk about balance. There really isn't a balance. It's
Mm-mm.
just you kind of have to run with it. And some days you're operating on a thread. And I think that's so wonderful that you were able to work with your family and your community. And it takes people to help other people. And that's why we're here at OH2. That's why we do the experience coaching. That's why we do the wowwomenus.com, because we want to work with other people. We want to let people know they're not alone. We don't
Mhm.
want them to feel isolated. We don't want them to feel like they're out of sync with other people.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one thing I would be curious about, Trish, and this probably could be a help for myself, for Barb, and for other women who partner and hire, other people who may have some sort of chronic illness that they may be suffering from, right? How do we leave the door open for this type of conversation, right? As respecting that you maybe don't want to lead with that, but I do think there is power in helping the people who you may partner with regularly or closely to say, hey, this is something that I do have challenges with. Like, how can we open the door for that type of conversation?
Well, on the side of like someone who's hiring someone with a chronic illness, I just think being open-minded and maybe if you don't understand what they're going through, maybe learn a little bit about it.
Mhm.
But also it's really hard on my side having the chronic illness because people don't accept it very well. They're like, "Oh, you're just being lazy," or I mean, no one said that of me, but I've heard that of other people. They're always calling out or they can't, fulfill their obligations. And on my side of it, I try to be a little bit open about it, but I am very careful about that. But I also am very, very careful about who I choose to work with.
Mhm.
And I'm also very careful about my schedule. So I don't take clients who have to have right now work. Like people who need
Right.
something yesterday, they're not my client.
Yeah.
And so for someone who has a chronic illness, I just think it's really important that you're very careful about who you're working with. It's easier when you have your own business than it would be if you're going into the office every day. And I know that there's a lot of people that go to work every day who never tell anyone that they're dealing with something because it wouldn't be received well and they wouldn't get the support that they need. And I think that's a shame. And I think that, that there needs to be something in place. And I think it starts with understanding, just to
Yeah.
be able to understand the other person.
We've talked a little bit about boundaries, right? So, and that comes up, and I think a boundary sometimes a little bit different, and I think they should be flexible and so forth. So, how is it when you get into a situation with someone? So you're talking to them. You said you have to be your own advocate. You have
Mhm.
to make sure when you are reaching out to other people that you are finding a good fit, not just accepting the job, for instance. And you don't have to necessarily tell them your woes, no more than I would tell people mine. But I think it's important that you protect your health and your energy too. So, how do you go about doing that? I mean, do you say, "Hey, does it get to a point, or do you have to cut the relationship?" What do you do, Trisha?
I think for myself, because I'm s I don't even know how to phrase this, but I protect my calendar like there's no tomorrow. And I know if I'm doing too much, could end up needing some extra rest time. And so whereas in the past I would just run myself into the ground and then need a week to recover, I don't do that anymore. So my boundaries are to protect you, right? They're your fence that you stay in, and you set them up that it benefits you and your needs. So for me, I have a morning time that I guard like crazy, and I know that I need to get fresh air and be outside, and I know that I need to exercise, and I know that I need to prepare my meals, whether it's meal planning or meal prepping early, or having a little extra time to go down and prepare something that's healthy for me. I can't just grab and go. I can't eat out, a lot. So there are some things in my schedule that I've created boundaries around, and I say no. That's one thing that I've learned that I didn't feel comfortable doing years and years ago. But the older I get, the easier it becomes to just say no. I'm sorry. I can't do that. Or I when I got Lyme disease, I had great difficulty driving at night. So when I'm invited to go somewhere at night, I'll say, "I'm sorry, I can't see at night. So unless you want to pick me up, I can't go." And so there's just some things that I have done for myself, and I think for each individual, you have to decide what's going to help you uh, to succeed and to be able to keep doing what you're doing. What do you need to say no to? And if you have, like I said, if you have a difficult client, you might need to say, "I'm sorry, this isn't working for us," and cut the cord.
No.
And that's okay, because not everyone works well together. And I always have a grace period, and I always say, let's work for a time and then see how we work together, because we may not be a good fit.
Mhm.
Good point. And I think that's any relationship, whether it's a personal or a professional relationship. I think it's important to be able to speak outward to that person and make sure that that person is the right one and is a good fit. Like what we've discovered here with Optimize Her too. When you have three people that can come together, my goodness, try and coordinate our schedules. Sometimes can be a major feat in itself, but when you have people come together and you're all in agreement with what you want to do and to be able to stick to that, and then also understand that there are times where I do have to say no, ladies. There are times family or
Mhm.
husband or your spouse. There are times that things just don't work. And in your situation, not that it's like totally debilitating. By all means, in my opinion, you excel far beyond and above so many different people I've worked with in my careers.
Well, thank you. I at this point in my game, this year has been terrible with migraines, and other than that, I'm pretty good about, my health. So I try to stay on top of it as much as I can.
So is there any oh, I'm sorry, Quincy, were you gonna say something?
Well, I was just thinking to the conversation we were having earlier and just the importance of support and community, right?
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
think being able to have some of those strategies in place of, before Instacart was popular or, being able to have different ride shares and things of that nature. But also the power of no. I feel like I try to bring it in every episode we have that no is a full stop, and it, it doesn't require explanation. You can provide
Mhm.
context when you want, but you have the right to say no. And I think it's a great thing as we age, we get more comfortable in that. But I look forward to the day when we use it, as we're getting younger to reinforce some of the boundaries in our younger years.
True. And years ago, someone said, no is a complete sentence.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And I love
exactly.
that, and I thought, as women, we want to explain, we wanna say, "I'm sorry," we feel guilty, right? Now, I still feel guilty sometimes, and
Sure.
usually it's more like I really wanted to do that, but
I know.
sometimes I'll feel like I'm letting somebody down, and that can cause a little bit of guilt, but I have to do what's best for me and my family, and so if it's something that's going to push my limits, I have to say no.
Hmm.
So that community thing, back to that, what message would you then give to other people who, women and men, I'm sure there's men that are viewing our podcast too. What advice would you have for them and their family and business, and what message would you bring to them after you've spoken about this to everyone here tonight?
I think number 1 is don't isolate. Isolation will bring you down faster than anything because you get into your head, you start to feel like a victim. Isolation is just so damaging and so dangerous, and it's so important to have people in your life, even if it's just getting on a Zoom call, even if it's just phone calling someone. My sister and I have this thing where if we're feeling down, we will call the other sister because we promised each other. We're not gonna just sit in our downness. We're going to help support each other and encourage each other. And when my kids were sick, it was the same thing. I did not want them to be isolated. That it is just so dangerous. So I would bring people to them. I would bring their friends over for them. But number 1 is definitely don't isolate. So however you can be with other people, and that is really hard because a lot of people don't understand someone who has chronic illness, and they become very impatient with them and very frustrated, and they think it's all in their head. Especially someone with Lyme disease looks amazing on the outside most of the time. And
Hmm.
on the inside, they are falling apart because their nervous system is shot. They're having neurological things going on. They may be having heart palpitations or whatever
Mm.
it is. They look great on the outside, and no one can understand what's going on in the inside. So that's where I think if you can try to help your loved ones and your friends or whoever you're working with to understand a little bit of what you're going through, and that's where a little bit of openness comes into play. There are people who don't wanna ever share what they're going through, and then there's people like me that get all over social media and tell everybody because I'm like, "You're not alone."
And that's why
So,
we're here, isn't it, at
yeah.
Optimize Her too, because this podcast welcomes hearing from our audience. We want to hear that. And I'm sure that if you had a way of reaching out to someone, or if you want to invite someone to connect with you, especially on this topic, rather than go to Optimize Her too and tell the world, is there a place that they could come directly to you, Tricia?
They can go to my Lyme website is called aboundinginhopewithlyme.com. And they can go there, they can email me, and I answer my emails. They can find me on Instagram and Facebook as well, so I do still check those DMs even though I'm not super active on social media there. I also have an email list, so if they wanna sign up for my newsletters, they can do that. I have a
Mhm.
lot of resources on my website. I offer coaching and there's so much over there. I put my blood, sweat and tears into that website. So that's really the best place for them to contact me. And then if they are interested in my services as a digital operations specialist, my website is triciasoderstrom.com.
Love
That's
that.
good to know as well. And she'll be
Yeah.
very picky about who she chooses to work
I
with.
am.
But
And as she has the right to be, and I just want to remind our viewers who are watching, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because we are
Mhm.
bringing you hot topics like this twice a month and really great guests. And I was thinking about something you said about the isolation, right? And how we can be better to our loved ones. What would be maybe some recommendations you may have, like one or two things of what can I be on the lookout if someone is starting to isolate so I can start to recognize it?
So if you live with them, they'll
Hmm.
get quiet and they'll start maybe appearing to be sad or depressed.
Mm,
You really want to keep, your eyes out for that. They may not even try to get up and take a shower or to take care of themselves. If you don't live with them, a key is that they'll stop calling or they may stop answering your calls. They may stop coming if they work, going out of the house and coming to events, they may stop doing the things that they normally do. So any change in behavior or patterns that you're used to, I would just do a little check-in and say, "How are you?" "How are you really?" Because they
Hmm.
may say, "Fine, just fine," and they may not wanna get into it. But
good
when
practice.
someone shows empathy and concern and they really care, then that is very helpful and that can open up that door for a conversation.
Good, good. Thank you.
So here at Optimize Her Too, the reason we chose that name is precisely what you just spoke about. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone of the same gender, of course. Of course, we're here to educate, elevate, and empower women. But anyone that you see, anyone that may need some help, just know that just your reinforcement of connecting with other people, we've really gotten away from that over the years. For instance, years ago, somebody would knock on my door and they would say, "Hey, I just thought I'd stop by." Well, I still do that today. And whenever I do it, people look at me like, "What?" We need to get back into doing those things. And I think normalizing socialism, not
Mm.
in the sense of, what other people may be thinking, but socialize, I should have said. Socialize with other people. It's not a horrible thing. Get out there
Yeah.
and stop being such a hermit. Sometimes we have to like push ourselves a little bit too. Trisha, I know you have. And
Yeah,
Quincy, I know
it's
you do too.
yeah, it's hard, like, especially since 2020, we've become like homebodies, and we'd rather just get on, a Zoom call or a phone call than to go out of the house. And so I think that's one of the reasons why when, a few years ago, I decided I was going to take my business local because I wanted to get out of the house and I wanted to get to know some of the local business women and I wanted to be a part of the community. And that makes a huge difference in mindset. And it makes a huge difference that you feel like you have a community and that empowers you. When you're all
Oh,
alone,
yeah.
you just, you can't do as much. You can't be as, successful when you're alone.
No,
Agree.
we're proof of that right here. So
Agree.
we're from Maryland, Trisha and I. Quincy is Arizona. What's the weather like out there, Quincy?
It's nice. So I think we are down to sort of the mid 90s. So we haven't
Ooh,
had a triple digit day in I think about maybe 2 weeks. I think we're actually going to get a little bit of storms. So I was telling you ladies about how we get the dust storms every so often. We may get one here in the next day or so. So
Mm.
fingers crossed, everyone is safe and we are an area that is not built for a lot of water. Our infrastructure is not designed for that. So anytime we get too much rain, city goes wild. But I'm originally from California, right? And I've been out here now since 2011, and it's been a change of pace and a change of environment. But to some of our earlier conversations, I was able to find community at first through the corporation I work for, and then through networking and as an entrepreneur. And it's been very much life changing. I think I've been able to bond and connect with women or men through shared interest and goals versus, we all sort of just work or live in the same area. So it's been really exciting for me being out here in Arizona.
and I with Wow Women US, when I started September of 2012, it was all about just bringing women together, and that was my focal point. Always has been since I was a little girl, getting little girls together, having a good time, and continue through my career. And like you with Trisha, I know all of us are focused around family.
Yeah.
It's really near and dear and important to us to be able to do that. So I think it's great that you all are taking your time to watch us, taking away a little bit of time from your family here this evening and learning because that's how we grow by educating one another. And it's not just an education through, your traditional means, it's by doing things like this through podcasting. And I greatly appreciate Tricia, for you to come on tonight. I know that you like to do your evenings and cut off your day at a certain time. And Quincy, you too, because you're 3 hours away from us. So I
Hmm.
greatly appreciate your giving of your time as well as our audience for coming and spending the 30, 45 minutes twice a month with us on the first and third Tuesday of each month. So, like Quincy said, please go to YouTube,
Hmm.
like, share, and subscribe. If you don't
Yes.
have enough time to see all of our podcasts or you can't get on for our live version here on YouTube, take a look at the website at YouTube. Look at Optimize Her too. We also have some short little clips that our friend Tricia has created so you can get a little flavor of what we're all about. And it's because of all of you. We have what, over 3,500 views already since
Hmm.
August 19th?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was
It's great.
told don't be let down if nobody watches you or listens to you or views you. And you all have been great. Thank you all for your support. And I think daughter Lindsay is on tonight. Thank you,
Oh.
Woohoo.
Lindsay, if you're here with us.
Hey, daughter Lindsay. It's
Go
been,
ahead,
I think for me, it's been with this podcast, it's something I've always toyed with. I've always wanted to have some sort of YouTube channel. And I've gone through different iterations of having a YouTube channel for many different years. But this is the one where it just feels like I can get on, talk. We're going to have some good conversation. It is like chatting with my girlfriends, and we're
Mhm.
having a little personal talk with a little business. We walk away feeling a little bit more empowered, a little bit more energized, and ready for the next things that we need to tackle on our list.
And then Trisha will get busy afterwards doing
Yep.
her little editing and so forth and so on. So next time, until next time, which is going to be October 21st, Tuesday, October 21st at 7 p.m., where we're going to have Holly Holiday. And can you just give us a little bit of a briefing on Holly,
Yeah,
Quincy?
Holly Holiday is a magnetic personality. She is all about marketing. She is a website guru. She will make sure that your website is attracting and retaining attention. So if you are looking to improve your digital door, as we like to say, Holly's your girl, and I think you're going to have a rocking good time. And I think her accent is the best. I just love talking to Holly. Her
That
name's
is
Holly
so
Holiday. Like, come on, she's meant to be a
Holly
celebrity.
Holiday. Yeah.
Yes.
That's just a party happening.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
I love it. I love the name. Anything
Mm.
else you wanted to add, ladies, Trisha?
Nope. Thank you for having me and allowing me to share a little bit about my passion. And uh, I'm really hopeful that if anyone is struggling, even if you don't have Lyme, but you have some other chronic issue, my thing is encouraging women and just helping them get through, some of the difficult times. And I've 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 got so many things that I have learned along the way that I'd love to pass on.
That's
That's
cool.
what this is
Well,
about.
we
This is all
appreciate it
about.
very, very much. That's for sure. So until next time, remember to nurture your mind, your body, and your business.
There you go.
All right.
Take care, everybody. Stay well.
Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.